unfortunately I was a bit ill for about a week or so, and I just couldn't quite get round to filming sooner. But here we are, and as you can quite clearly see, I have an Artbook adventure for you today. And this is a very special Artbook adventure for me because I am doing it for the concept art book for Guardians of the Galaxy, and perhaps a strange choice, but it is one of my favourite films of all time, if not my absolute favourite film. I watch it on an almost weekly basis. I have yet to get bored of it. I adore it. I can't even really explain why. It's just one of those things, it just resonates with me. So I of course had to add this glorious art book to my extensive art book collection. I apologise if you're not perhaps a fan of the movie, but I promise you it is a wonderful spectacle. Even if you're not a fan of the movie, some of the concept illustrations in here are pretty spectacular. So I would probably say that my art book collection is mostly concept art books, as well as, I'm not sure what to call them, I guess sort of social media artists. I don't have an awful lot of art books on them, sort of the masters if you like, but I can't help it, I am a sucker for concept art. So I am going to stop just stroking the glorious cover and we're going to have a look inside. So yeah, part of the reason why I love this book is, why I love this film, could be because of a certain Mr. Chris Pratt. He is one of my favourites. I also adore Zoe Saldana, so it was like a double awesome whammy for me. And if you haven't seen it, honestly, even if you don't think you like sci-fi or superhero movies, it's so much more than either of those two things. So we have some early concept artwork here for glorious Star-Lord, who is my dream husband, and Little Rocket, who's pretty feisty and awesome. It's always so amazingly interesting to see how characters developed from like the very earliest conceptions to how they end up in the final film. I mean, if you look at this image, I mean, it's you know who they are, but they look so different to how they ended up in the film. Except for Rocket, I mean, a raccoon is a raccoon. This one's pretty cool. I love the almost steampunk style to Star-Lord's helmet. I'm not quite sure what's going on with Drax here. He kind of looks more like an android. Oh, how awesome is this? I love the lighting on this illustration. It's just so atmospheric, and the artist really, really captured all of them. So cool. This is the director, James Gunn, who's a bit of a genius. I think he knows it too. Then we have information on the original Guardians of the Galaxy from the graphic novels. I have read some of the later graphic novels. I love them, they're hilarious, although it's kind of going in a direction I'm not really kind of enamoured with, but I will persevere. As you can see, they look quite different to how they ended up in the film, which is obviously a recurring theme. There's a Nebula, who I have to say I hated in this film. She was awful, the woman who played her. I think her name was Karen Gillan. Oh, she just overacted every single line and was generally ridiculous. But anyway, that's Yondu. If you're aware of the film, that's what he originally looked like, and you'll know that he looks nothing like that. Although I think for the second film they've brought in a slightly bigger head fin. Oh, so Legendary Star-Lord, Chapter 1 is all about the main boy himself. I can't help it. I do tend to like those kind of charming, idiotic characters, although he's a little more arrogant and self-centered than I usually go for. I won't read any of the text because we'll probably be here for a little while if I did. But if you're studying concept art yourself and are looking to get into it, then these kind of books are a great resource to look at. I mean, just look at the lighting and the mood of this one. Although Rocket looks a little gormless. So we have some very early concept designs here. Now this is very much based on his original design from the graphic novel, with his traditional helmet, and then as you can see here, we are starting to get more into his later look. He almost kind of looks quite military and, I don't want to say Nazi-ish, but with that helmet, which I'm guessing is why they moved away to this slightly more funky looking helmet. Let those beautiful locks fly loose. So here's the final design for the helmet, and again I do love though that almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It looks quite old-fashioned, it almost looks like the kind of the diving suits that they used to wear going underwater. I know a lot smaller, but I do love it when they kind of mix old and new together in that fashion. And then you have the science behind his helmet and how it actually sort of fits over his face, because it's quite clever. It's a little piece behind his ear that sort of wraps around his face. And we have his element guns, which didn't really feature in the film that much. They don't really talk about it, but they're quite a big deal in the graphic novel, because he's one of these superheroes who doesn't really have any powers himself. He's just got the gadgets and his rocket boots. So this was the opening scenes of the movie. This is Morag. That amazing opening. I think that's what did it for me. I was just absolutely blown away by that opening, and I just knew I was going to love it from that. Oh, I love these kind of environments. I'd love to be able to create things like this. I mean, look at these trees. They almost look like dragonfly wings. And the lighting here, oh, it's gorgeous when the cloud is very low, but you get that hint of sunlight poking through underneath, and it gives everything that almost post-apocalyptic kind of yellowish glow. Oh, it's wonderful. And the old trick of having the foreground darkened and the background lighter to give a sense of depth and scale. And then this kind of thing, which just blows my mind. Just so much detail. How do you even start building this kind of thing? I think this is Ronan's chamber. He's getting himself ready for whatever. Oh, I'm guessing that's an early concept of Ronan. Oh no, this is the orb. This is a concept for the orb's devastating power. So if you're aware of the Marvel universe, you know that most of the stories are focused on the Infinity Stones, and several have turned up so far, and Guardians of the Galaxy is really where you start to kind of see them come into play. Oh my goodness, another one of my favourite actors, Jimon Honsu. I am probably mispronouncing his name. Been pretty much in love with him ever since I saw him in Gladiator, because he's just absolutely wonderful. Although he had a very small part in this, he was pretty awesome with his, machine head. I'm assuming these are some early concepts for his character. I am a gigantic Marvel nerd. I should probably throw that in there now. If I could pick any universe to live in, it would probably be the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I am that cool. Lots of concepts. This is like the dream for a lot of artists, is to be able to do this kind of work. Just to be able to sit and create. Oh my goodness. Now, the subject isn't particularly, pretty or nice, but that colour, oh, it's just, oh. So, as much as I love Peter Quill, Star-Lord, only his ride that I love more. Look at that beautiful machine. And what I love, the little detail that they had in the movie, is that when it actually kind of speeds up, when it revs, it sounds like a proper engine. So it revs and it roars like, you know, a motorbike or a car would. And I just, for some reason, I loved that detail, because most spaceships have that kind of very futuristic sort of sound, but I loved how kind of guttural and edgy that sounded. I mean, just look at it. It's a beautiful, beautiful ship. And I have to say, and be honest, I do own the Milano. Obviously, alas, not in true scale, but I do own a toy version that randomly my parents bought me for Christmas because they know me so well. So lots of glorious shots of the Milano. Such a beautiful, beautiful ship, and the wonderful contrasting colours of the orange and the blue. Here we have some very early concepts. You got ugly, 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 but you can kind of see an early one here. But obviously they refined it. Ooh, sorry about that noise. They refined it and made it beautiful. I am quite a sucker for pretty cars anyway, so pretty ships are even more of a weakness, because obviously they can fly, and they can fly in space. So some just interiors there. Sort of the living quarters. The good old tape player, probably one of the key components of the film, one of the main characters I would say in the film, is the soundtrack. It is incredible. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. Chapter 2, Dark Alliances. I'm assuming we're now going to be looking at some of the bad guys. And actually, it's one of those films where technically all of the main characters start out as bad guys, which is what I love about it. You know, they even say in the movie that they're a bunch of a-holes, and they really are, but they come through, you know, and save the galaxy with absolutely no sort of hint of reward or compensation, huge personal risk, and nobody is forcing them. I read an article actually that declared that the movie was one of Marvel's most sexist, and one of the things it picked up on wrongly was how there was no change in Peter Quill's character from being a self-centered, arrogant, you know, womanizing a-hole, you know, that at least with some of the other Marvel characters they did have some sort of reformation. They became better people. But call me crazy, but saving the galaxy is a pretty big, you know, deal. Better than sort of saving a town or even a city like Thor or Tony Stark, who he was compared to. And the movie never kind of sugarcoated the fact that these guys were just the lowest of the low. They were assassins, they were mercenaries, bounty hunters, cold-blooded killers. They were not nice people. And yet they saved the day. Personal sacrifice. So yes, that's something that's been bugging me for a long time, and it does kind of feel good to get that off my chest when I read that article. I mean, I do agree up to a point that there was, oh sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself. Oh, look at the atmosphere oozing out of that piece. Oh, wonderful. Anyway, I will admit that there is a stark lack of female presence in the movie. You know, Gamora is awesome, she makes up a lot of it, but you know, there's Gamora, Nebula, who I've already said was terrible. You've got Nova Prime played by Glenn Close. But you know, most of the background characters are all male. You know, the Ravagers, the space pirates are all dudes. Now that might have been James Gunn's homage to the sort of traditional pirates of old, sailing about on their ships and their superstitions about having women on board, but somehow that kind of superstition doesn't seem to fit really in a sci-fi futuristic setting. You'd think they'd have moved on. But anyway, so yeah, I disagreed with a lot of what the article said, and it irritated me for a long time, so it does feel quite good to be able to get that off my chest. So thank you for indulging me in listening. I'm going to go back to the book now. menacing. He just seemed a bit silly, especially in the fact that he was wearing this kind of weird drapey hood thing and he couldn't really move his head very far. But he's definitely better than some, that's for sure. Oh, I think that's supposed to be Thanos. Thanos. Meeting him soon, I think. Sanctuary is where Thanos lives, which is, I think, from what I can tell, just a floating rock in space. So yeah, he's a mad titan, and he has turned up a couple of times in the sort of credit sneak peeks in other Marvel movies. He's turned up at the end, if you sit and watch to the end, which I think most Marvel nerds do, constructing him, because he's not a real person, he's a computer generated character. Oh, Ripley Jin. Then we have Nebula. Now she's, like, on the face of it, a really cool character, and you know, she's got this amazing look, but as I've said before, the woman who played her was just wrong for the part, I think. I mean, I don't watch Doctor Who, but I'm pretty sure that's where she comes from. She was one of the Doctor's kind of assistants, and she just couldn't do badass. Just really couldn't. She was just really, it just felt uncomfortable on her. She looked really stiff. She flounced a lot. She was just overacting. She just overacted every single line. So she was probably the biggest downfall for the movie, in my opinion. Whoa. Galaxy's Most Wanted, so I do believe that this is Xandar. Oh my goodness, I forgot what it's called for a minute. Which is like the capital of the little alliance that they've got going on. I'm just going to say quickly, I apologise if there is some of this cut off, but it's a very big book and it wouldn't quite fit into my camera's view. And another thing that I would say is a slight criticism about the film is that you didn't really have this kind of diversity in its citizens. You know, they were either human looking and pink, or human looking and kind of green. You didn't really get an awful lot of the crazy different races going on. I mean, everyone in this picture especially, they're all humanoid. So it would have been nice to see something a bit more mixed up, like some bit more of, you know, this and stuff, rather than what actually happened. Kind of wonder if they ran out of budget and couldn't afford either the prosthetics or the extras. Here's a Barit with a generic pink woman. I do not remember Tiasha at all. I have no idea who she is. That's definitely not how the broker ended up looking. More like a porcupine. Rocket. Now, he was played by Bradley Cooper in the movie, and I still don't understand how that was Bradley Cooper. It didn't sound anything like him at all. But Rocket was brilliant. I loved the attitude, and yeah, that is a direct influence from the graphic novels. That's exactly what he's like. And the thing is, I mean, the problem with concept arting a raccoon is, unfortunately, if you want him to look real, then I'm afraid he's just going to have to look like a raccoon. Which he did. With very, very big guns. Oh, little tail. So cute. Okay, don't know what this is, but it looks like a cross between a badger and a sloth, and that is going to scare no one. Oh my goodness. Imagine if they'd made this movie in the 80s, he would have been like a puppet or an animatronic. I miss those films, but you know, thank goodness for some advances in CG animation, otherwise Guardians would have looked very different. Oh, Groot. I love how they made him a little more friendly looking, whereas a lot of the graphic novel variations of him, he's quite fierce. But, you know, just look at that little face. Yeah, see things like this, but even that's still quite tame looking compared to some of them. Yeah, I love Zoe Saldana as well, she's amazing. So very early concepts going on here. Now originally in the graphic novel she's got green hair and she's got like yellow around her eyes. So again, they did change her character quite a bit. I mean, that's just completely different. I mean, that looks more like Nebula. But I mean, just look at the variation here. This one's pretty cool actually. I kind of wish they'd gone for something like this. That one's also pretty awesome. I don't even know what that is. Concepts. Ooh, I'm a sucker for a shaved head, or at least a shaved side sort of head, so I love this one. And that's a beautiful illustration as well. Let's move it more into a shot. Sorry, I'm kind of forgetting that I'm supposed to be filming an ASMR video, so I'm talking quite quickly. I'm sorry, but I think there's quite a lot of book to go. We've still got like half of it left. I'll try and remember to talk a little slower. So, I think this is supposed to be Gamora, so this is them playing with all of her makeup, figuring out her markings, eye colour, and all that jazz. My goodness, so I'm guessing that's Xandar from up above, bird's eye view. Looks pretty man-made. Looks like a pretty bustling city. I like actually how it's not sort of like a New York city, you know, with all the high-rise buildings. It's actually quite flat. I quite like that. Yeah, I quite like that sort of aesthetic as well, with lots of green and lots of ocean as well. It's a very, very pretty city, although I have no idea what these are in the corner. They look like footballs on sticks. Moving on. I'll be honest, I haven't actually read any of the text in this book because, I mean, can you blame me? Just look at all the beautiful pictures. I mean, I'm being spoiled. We are being spoiled by all them, just the illustrations. Oh, Nova Prime. Good old Glenn Close, she was great. Different uniforms. I love the detail they go into, so you've got the different levels in the badge. So you've got Causman, Denarian, good old Denarian Sol, he was funny. Got Millennian, Centurion, and Nova Prime gets to have the 8-pronged star. So Nova is actually a superhero in his own right, and I'm not quite sure, you know, how much of an influence he is in the Nova Corps, whether it's just one of those things that they have just happen to have the same name, or whether he maybe founded them. But I don't think he looks like that. That's John C. Reilly. Again, this kind of weird, looks a bit vicious to be honest. Looks more like a bad guy than a peacekeeping unit. So this is directly taken from the original design of Nova, who I think we saw. Sorry about the motorbike noise. Where is he? There he is. So that's Nova. So I don't know whether maybe he perhaps founded the Nova Corps. As I said, I've only been reading Marvel graphic novels for a couple of years. Sorry, I missed this and I just want to go back to it because it's absolutely perfect to sum up the characters in this movie. A thief seen it so many times, I do pretty much know the screenplay. Although I couldn't just say it now. I'd have to have the movie to prompt me, but yeah. Same when I listen to the music, whenever I hear one of the songs, it always takes me back to that particular point in the movie. It always makes me smile. You know, you have that film that just doesn't matter what mood you're in, what kind of place you're in, and especially if you're just in a, not in a great mood, in a bad place, you can put it on at least for a couple of hours. You can just kind of be taken away from it and smile and just feel better. Guardians is my film. That's my film for that. It never ever ceases to make me smile and to cheer me up. And yes, it's a strange choice. I never would have imagined that this, kind of film would, be one of my favourites, but it is, and I love it. So here I have Drax, who was played by Dave Bautista, who's actually a wrestler, so not an actor by trade. And I always think that's quite risky because, usually they're not the best actors. I mean, the only one that's done well is Dwayne Johnson, and he can sometimes sound a little bit hammy and cheesy, but no, I thought Dave Bautista did a really good job. And they changed his character actually a lot from the original graphic novel. In the original graphic novel, he was green, like Gamora, and his markings are nowhere near as intricate. But I can understand why they decided to make him a different colour, just to add some variation. But my goodness, I mean, just look at the detail in his prosthetics. I mean, having to have that put on you every day. I mean, he must have had to get there at like stupid o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure what these are either. I don't know if they're like tattoos as such, because obviously they are in relief. But it does call them tattoos up here, so maybe that's it. But you've got lots of skulls going on here. I'm sensing a theme. So yeah, this is more what he looked like, or what he looks like in the graphic novels. So quite different, although still bald, still topless. Well, that's a very strange version. That's more like a Peter Quill version of Drax. That's weird. But yeah, you can see we're starting to get to the Drax that we recognise. Okay, so apparently my camera got a bit full, so I don't know when it stopped recording, so apologies if there seems to be a bit of a weird break in the audio. So I'm just gonna carry on from here. So I was saying that I follow James Gunn on Instagram, and he was posting sneaky storyboard shots of the new film that they filmed a couple of months ago, which sounds like really bad, like he was going to give away loads, but honestly these storyboards were literally a couple of stick figures and maybe like one word. You really couldn't get anything from them. Quite funny. But yeah, so they do this first, which just seems like such a tedious process, but important. More storyboards. I mean, they plan out every single move, every single shot. That was an awesome scene. Oh, am I kidding? They're all awesome. But then again, I am slightly biased. I do love this movie. Okay, so we have chapter 6, Nowhere to Run. So this is Nowhere, which is a pretty cool but incredibly creepy design, which is basically the severed head of random citizens who, to be honest, I never really paid much attention to. Always so focused on what's going on. We got some crazy ladies. Some really fantastic designs going on here. But one thing they all seem to have in common, they're all very slender and they're all wearing quite tightly fitted clothes. Oh look, there's some more. Although yay for some variation. She's fabulous. And the ginger, woot woot. Gotta have a shady bar. Yeah. This wasn't so fun, we're gonna move on. The Collector, played by Benicio del Toro. Kinda weird, but kind of annoying, but also kinda cool. If you're a Marvel nerd, then you probably would have paid very close attention to some of the things that he had in his collection. Because there are lots of things from different movies in the Marvel universe in there. Like, I'm pretty sure there's one of the Dark Elves from Thor: The Dark World in one of his little cages. So they call them Easter eggs, isn't it? Sort of clues and hints. Ah, yes, the Tesseract. So yes, you first get introduced by the Collector right at the end of Avengers Assemble, because he is given one of the stones to look after. Actually, no, I thought actually it was at the end of Thor: The Dark World he gets given one of the stones. Do you know what? I can't remember. There does come a point where they all do tend to blur into one. Ah, here you go, yes. There was a Dark Elf, I was right. And poor old space dog. So here we are going through some of the stones that we've already seen in other Marvel movies, but Guardians was the first one that actually explained what they were. So we'd already come across the Tesseract. This appeared in the Captain America, the original Avenger, the first Avenger, and again in the first Avengers film. There is a crease in this page. I'm trying to overlook it. Then you have the Ether, which was in the second Thor film, The Dark World, and now of course we have the Power Stone, which was the focus of Guardians. But since this, we have now also come across the Mind Stone, which appeared in Age of Ultron and is now a part of Vision, one of the new Avengers. So we still technically have, sorry, leg is going numb. So we still have 3 Infinity Stones unaccounted for. It's all very exciting. Sorry, I could waffle on about it for ages. Again, I am a gigantic nerd, so here is the Collector and some of his more creepy incarnations, but they decided to keep him slightly more humanoid. he saves Gamora's life. The turning point for our dear Peter Quill, I think. Although he's still an arse about it, but that's because of who he is. I mean, come on, the man was raised by space pirates. He wasn't going to be particularly well adjusted, was he? Sorry, I'm having real problems with my camera at the moment. It is just cutting out like crazy. So again, I don't know where it stopped, so I'm just going to carry on. So we've got Yondu Dante. So you've got an image more based on his original design in the graphic novels and slightly more bestial looking. But again, they tended to towards toning it down for the movie in the end. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Why didn't they go for this one? It must be pretty amazing to be a concept artist on something like this and seeing your design making it onto the big screen. I mean, that's got to be a buzz and a half. Here are some of the Ravagers. I, again, don't remember them looking quite so crazy. Most of them just, again, were just human beings. So here they are in their battle gear. They just have to have this stuff lying around. It seems a bit strange though, despite the fact that there appeared to be no female Ravagers. They just happen to have this Gamora-sized outfit just waiting for her. But you know, whatever. I did miss Star-Lord's swishy coat. I do enjoy the long coat in the beginning of the movie. I do hope they bring that back. Yeah, oh, this scene where they're walking down sort of the tunnel, getting ready to embark on their dangerous and life-threatening mission, and Gamora just yawns. That's a beautiful moment. Rocket fiddles with his undercarriage, which I would imagine he doesn't really have much of one being a raccoon. But anyway, Chapter 8, somebody's got to do it. And yes, it's the bunch of a-holes that come through and save the day. Wow. That's a mess of a thing. I assume these are supposed to be ships, but it just kind of looks like the ships are kind of breaking apart. Not the best image. Oh, that beautiful scene where Groot, they're in a dark room and they can't see, so Groot sort of issues forth these beautiful little kind of lights, and Drax asks him, you know, how long have you been able to do that? And Star-Lord turns around and says, I'm pretty sure the answer is I am Groot. That line gets me every time. It might be my favourite line in the whole movie. It just sums up the humour perfectly. That might be partly why I love this film, is because it's the constant humour. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And although Deadpool kind of claims that it made, you know, superheroes cool and kind of weird, but I'm sorry, Guardians did it first. They had the amazing soundtrack, the tongue-in-cheek humour, again the sort of slightly playful taking the mick out of themselves. Original and best. We're getting towards the end now. Things are getting crazy. Oh, sweet crew. Oh, what a lovely image that is. Just like proper close up on their faces, although you've got major glare going on there from the lights, unfortunately. You can't see. Maybe if I just tilt it upwards. There you go. You got Star-Lord looking on there and poor old Rocket saying goodbye to Groot. It's just a really nice, kind of very intimate image. I really like that one. And then you have destruction. And the weird footballs again. There's one thing I always think about when this kind of thing happens, is the clean up afterwards must be ridiculous. Just where do you even begin to start clearing this stuff away? Like, even in the Avengers, you know, when the ships collapsed in Captain America Winter Soldier, it's just same in Star Trek, you know, when the big ship crashes into San Francisco or whatever a city it is. My god, I mean, it must take years imaginatively titled Marketing Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, that is a pretty bitching image. So you've got the whole crew, and you've got the Milano, and a beautiful sunset. I mean, the pinnacle of awesomeness right here. There we go, so we've got some of the posters. This is the one that appears the most. I mean, it appeared in some form on the front of the book, and I think it's also the front of the DVD as well. Some of the characters, I will be honest, when I first heard about the fact they were making this into a movie, I didn't know the Guardians of the Galaxy. I had never read them before. I'd seen them on the shelf, but I'd never bothered to pick them up and have a proper look at them. Okay, so I really need a bigger memory card in my camera. So I'm going to have to wrap this up because I've literally now got 5 minutes before my card is full yet again. But yeah, so what was I saying? Yes. So yeah, I remember scoffing at the idea of these characters in a movie and just thinking, what a ridiculous thing to make a film about. All these amazing Marvel characters and they choose these guys. Yes, I am willing to admit how incredibly wrong I was. By far my favourite Marvel movie, quite possibly my favourite movie of all time. I love this movie. I love this art book. It is one of the best concept art books I own, just for the sheer volume of incredible illustrations in it. It's just amazing. And concept art books are just so fun anyway, just to get a glimpse of how things are constructed and evolve and put together. It's brilliant. So